So, do 5G cell phone signals harm humans? What do you think, Christian?
I have no idea, honestly. No idea.
So, um, I found this cool science website by this guy, Dr. Christopher S. Baird. They're very, succinct and honestly, I do think his takes are all very scientifically founded and pretty darn accurate. So, kind of more or less going off of what he's describing here, but it's just a nice summary, findings in summary format, digestible. I'm not going through and reading papers. But apparently, yeah, so guys, 5G causes zero harm to humans. Cell phones and cell phone towers, microwaves, they all use radio waves, right? Radio waves are extremely um their wavelength is very different from that of, let's see, X-rays, for example, which are potentially more carcinogenic because waves smaller than ultraviolet can damage atoms through ionization. All other waves interact with matter through simple heating. So essentially, these waves are too large. The wavelength is too large to really damage atoms. So no, iPhones and even Bluetooth, things like this, they don't cause cancer. So, because sometimes I'm like, is all this electromagnetic radiation that I'm getting with, all my devices bouncing around, is that going to affect me? Is that going to cause some type of cancer, cause some type of health issue? And apparently the answer is no, because a lot of them they use radio waves, which are essentially, like I said, too large in wavelength to affect atoms. They don't damage atoms really in any way. So, yeah, guys, you can rest assured knowing that your cell phones won't give you cancer, the 5G won't give you cancer. Radio waves simply don't have enough energy per photon to ionize atoms, as he states here. And the World Health Organization states only the high frequency portion of the electromagnetic spectrum, including X-rays and gamma waves, only those are ionizing. Um, and cancer occurs when the DNA in a cell is altered so that the cell grows in an uncontrollable way, right? The mutations, the uncontrolled proliferation. Um, and yeah, so let's see if there's anything else here, the smallest bit. Yeah. Any questions or thoughts on that, Christian?
That's super interesting. This is a cool website. How did
Yeah.
you discover this website?
Um, I was searching up one of the questions that we'll talk about later in the pod, and he had the answer and it came up in Google. So I just simply clicked on the answer. Like, you know how when you have a simple question, you Google it, and I came up on his blog. So yeah.
Does he link any like research articles or anything? Yeah, does he do that?
Yeah, he does sometimes within there actually. But I'm not seeing like a big resources, list at the bottom here. Um, but there are some, I think, here and there in some of the articles, but I'm not seeing any in these specifically.
Do you do you use have you ever used perplexity.ai?
Mm.
So Perplexity is a they've been around for a while. They were a Google competitor, but lately they've kind of with the AI LLM hype, they've become more popular again. But Perplexity is really interesting because you can do like a Google search, and then you'll get like a long form or a textual answer to your question with citations. So I'm gonna go to perplexity.ai and just type in the answer that he puts at the title of that article you showed, which was does cell
Yeah.
phone signals yeah how do 5G cell phone signals harm humans? I'm going to search that in Perplexity and see if it gives me any responses there. But
Yeah.
yeah, do you have any other thoughts on this? This is really interesting.
Um, 5G stands for fifth generation. 5G radio waves are physically identical to 4G radio waves in terms of their overall physical characteristics. They're only different in that 5G uses more clever ways to encode and process the information carried by these radio waves. Um, so the engineering is different, but the physics is not. Um, And yeah, there are two ways that electromagnetic radiation in general can damage biological tissues, cells, and functioning through ionization events and through bulk heating. So, an ionization event is when a bit of electromagnetic radiation knocks off a single electron or off knocks off an electron from an atom or molecule. This can cause the chemical bond between the atoms to break and can cause the atom to become a reactive ion, which can break other bonds, maybe bond with other atoms, leading to mutations, cancer, radiation sickness, and damage. Uh, but only this ionizing radiation has enough energy per photon to create an ionization event. Uh, but yeah, so there you have it, guys. Anything else on this, Chris?
No, I just did a search on Perplexity, and I couldn't get it to return any like citations for journal articles, but I feel like that would be a good way to do it. But anyway,
Gotcha. Okay.
yeah.
One other topic I have is let's see here. So we watched the movie Dark Waters recently about the attorney. His last name is Billot or Billet, and he was essentially um, in trial against DuPont for their use of Teflon or PFOA. And it was talking about how people who worked on the Teflon line were getting birth defects, things like this. How Teflon was causing health issues with people in that community, or at least they were apparently dumping, the PFOA or some of these harmful chemicals. And it's a story about how a farmer's cattle were all dying at an alarmingly increased rate due to this dumping of whatever chemical DuPont was dumping. And it turns out this chemical was PFOA or perfluorooctoacetane or something like that. Um, but this got me thinking, is the incidence of cancer and the amount of cancer that's out there right now, is that greatly increased, or is cancer really a man-made thing even? I'm sure the cancer rate is slightly increased since we started to do all of these, polluting things and chemical things. But as far as like it as a general entity, was it even around? Was it even that prevalent or present before, man started to make all of these carcinogens? And apparently the answer is yes. So Dr. Chris Baird here talks about how cancer has existed long before we were able to create synthetic substances that cause cancer. Um, and um, and every multicellular creature on Earth gets cancer, even in the remotest locations. Even there's actually a myth that sharks don't get cancer, but yes, even sharks can get cancer. Um, and certainly, while some man-made chemicals can indeed cause cancer, they're not the only causes. So, for example, think about sunlight, right? If you are in the sun a bunch, that radiation can cause skin cancer. And down here, for example, alcohol, ethanol it's essentially a natural compound, a natural chemical. It's the byproduct of yeasts fermenting sugar, and this can be found in nature. And it was, alcohol was made long before we were making a bunch of crazy chemicals. Um, and alcohol is a carcinogen. It's known to cause cancer of the mouth, throat, larynx, esophagus, liver, colon, and breast. And then we also have, you know, arsenic, natural compound, asbestos, natural compound, cosmic rays. Let's see. Our cosmic rays are high energy particles emitted by distant supernovae outside our solar system, and they constantly rain down on the Earth actually and have enough energy to ionize our atoms, thereby potentially causing cancer. However, our atmosphere provides somewhat of a shield against cosmic rays. However, people who spend a lot of time, say, on airplane flights do not benefit as much from this atmospheric shielding and have increased exposure to cosmic rays, actually. And then we have, other things such as HPV, which is actually a carcinogen, hepatitis B, H. pylori, lead, also naturally found, but can, of course, be greatly more accumulated with man doing its thing. And as I mentioned, solar radiation, but a big one is tobacco. And tobacco, guys, really is one of the greatest causes of preventable cancer. So we should really avoid, smoking cigars, cigarettes, things like this. I've definitely partaken in the cigarette or the cigar smoking from time to time. So it's definitely something I should keep in mind to mitigate risk for preventable cancer, really. But yeah, it contains at least 50 different chemicals that are known to cause cancer. So keep that in mind, guys.
Just like the tobacco plant itself has chemicals that, when burned, cause cancer. It's not just like additives in the tobacco, like, the cigarette manufacturing process. It's not, you know what I mean?
He links to this page, but it's no longer found. But
I think that is. I mean, there's chemicals in plants, right? Like,
yeah,
nicotine is found in tobacco. There is caffeine found in like green tea leaves and coffee. So, I mean, those are chemicals, right? So,
yeah,
or they have chemical. Everything is chemicals, but
yeah,
um,
yeah,
interesting that why the tobacco plant. I also, it's probably just like the fact that in most cases when you burn something, it produces carcinogens, right? Like, I mean, it's not a guarantee, but I mean, in most
yeah,
cases, anything like organic matter that is burned, usually when you inhale that smoke, that's
yeah,
carcinogenic, regardless of what it is. So it's probably it's probably not like specific to tobacco. Just inhaling any, like, burning, the combusted organic material, that's
yeah.
probably just
Which
always not
which begs the
healthy.
question then, is burned marijuana carcinogenic as well? And I guess maybe we'll find out, but apparently not as much as tobacco is though. So even still, tobacco is potentially even more carcinogenic than other organic matter that is burned. Um,
Yeah, that's a good point.
but yeah, I mean, because I always thought it was the way it's processed or produced, right? They add the chemicals to do this or that, but really, I do think it is potentially something within that plant innately that is also has just an increased risk for that stuff. So keep that in mind, guys. Do not smoke or do drugs. Anything
Cool.
else on this, Christian? So, guys, that is your answer. As far as that movie Dark Waters and stuff, the incidence of cancer and birth defects increasing with potentially man-made chemicals and things. Like, yes, there is that, but cancer and things like this existed long before we even got here. So, you know, you can kind of, you know, while yes, we do kind of man does create its own problems sometimes. Some of these things are kind of a natural part of life, unfortunately, where this has existed before we came and started making all this stuff. So keep all this in mind, guys. But yeah, definitely continue to live kind of a natural, healthy life and avoid, crazy exposure to crazy different chemicals and things like that and burning plastics and this and that. But yeah, I think that's kind of a simple answer for you there. So.
It's good advice. Good advice, Alex. I'll make sure not to huff burning plastic.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, I tried
I
it.
thought that was
Everybody
interesting.
tries
I
it at
thought
least once in life.